Welcome to TimTalks. I'm Travis,
I'm Tim.
and we have an episode all about big mistakes that email marketers make. And so I have been watching, I'm an audiobook file,
Yeah.
and I've listened to It, The Shining. I'm currently working through Midnight Mass,
Wow.
and of course I prepare the show notes.
Yeah.
And this heavily inspired the direction that I took with these. So
I was wondering why we were going with such a horror theme at the beginning of spring.
I'll tell you, that's why. Like Midnight Mass, which takes place right around Easter, it's just like, perfect.
Perfect.
Right
Yeah.
in the story, just like this podcast.
It's awesome. That's great. Yeah. It's super excited about the episode today. Just talking about everything that we all make mistakes when we do as content or email marketers, and just really excited to kind of dive into some of those common mistakes, how we can avoid that, and just give some tips on things that we all need to be mindful of and look out for.
And probably the biggest one being the tale of the misleading subject line.
Yeah. It's a huge one.
Everybody talks about subject lines,
Yeah.
and they are honestly very difficult to craft because, first off, you have to capture the right amount of attention, leave the right amount of intrigue for people to click into the email itself.
Right.
And if you mislead people down a different path, dark things happen.
Very bad things happen. But I think that's a key component that you just talked about, is that you want to drive that click and that open with the subject line, but you can't mislead people. If you end up having something like the RE or the forward to make it seem like, hey, we've been having a conversation, or I'm forwarding this from a friend and I want you to know about it, so you're going to click on it, because more likely the customer is going to engage with that. But when they click on it, they're going to be super upset because they're like, this isn't even what I thought it was, or we weren't having a conversation. You misled me. Their immediately walls are going to go up and they're going to get really upset and mark you as spam. So a huge example of that is a few years ago, Aziz Ansari. And I know he's not really too relevant now, but he did have his whole network Netflix show that came out in 2022. But still, his team put out a subject line that was all about getting people to donate. And they had a very misleading subject line that you're like, oh, cool, let me open this. And then you open it and it's getting people to donate to his cause that he wanted. It was super misleading. It turned a lot of people off. People were very outraged about it. And it wasn't Aziz specifically who did it, but it was his team.
Yeah,
but it's just
PR team.
But it was a PR team, but it made Aziz look really bad. And it did hurt his image at the time when that email went out.
Right. So that's one thing. And then we talk about phantom permissions.
Yeah. Not that anyone listening to this podcast would do it. No, never do that. But there are previous maybe email marketers that from before you joined the company would have done some things to maybe lower the permission passes on how you accept emails into your database. So it's really important that you don't have these phantom permissions where it makes it look like you're aggregating more clicks, more opens of people coming to your site and saying, yeah, let me subscribe and sign up, when in reality, all they did was just turn the permission settings off. So they removed the double opt-in. Maybe they bought a list and filtered them in. Because when there's pressure, I understand people feel like they need to do things to meet the needs of what the C-suite wants. However, we have to be very mindful that these are still human beings that are on the other side, just like you are. And if you get unwanted emails from a brand that you don't really want to hear from, or it's content that you don't want to hear, that you're not interested in, they're going to mark you as spam, and it's just going to hurt your sender and brand reputation.
Well, and it's not only that, you got the blood-sucking fine settle Sappy of life.
Yeah, that too.
GDPR is a real thing. And, all these other, with all this new evolving legislation around privacy rights.
Yeah.
And lawmakers are starting to crack down. I mean, in the best ways that they can.
Right.
You know, right now they're focusing on monopolies like Apple right now is in the news for being a tech monopoly, and it's closed walled off gardens, which was once something very desirable for users. Now it's like, oh, well, yeah, there are potential dangers to this.
Yeah,
particularly
absolutely.
for developers.
Yeah. And then when you look at how that GDPR is crossed into with CCPA, and then now you've got some other states that are looking at implementing their own statewide regulations, it does cause a lot of headaches for marketers. So it's really important that you stay on top of all these new changing laws that are coming into effect, and so that you adhere to the state by state regulations. Don't know where it's going, can't really speculate. As we all know, it may end up being a nationwide thing like they did for GDPR, but who knows? I don't even want to speculate on it because I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's all changing so fast. Yeah.
It could be next week. It could be 10 years from now. We don't know.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
For the consumers, hopefully next week.
Right. For the marketers,
let's give it a minute or two. Okay. Slow down.
Yeah. We're still, a lot of people are still reeling over the other recent changes with like Google and Yahoo, even though it was good, but everyone should have their DMARC, DKIM, and SPF and all that set up by now. You should have already had it done before, but.
Which starts April 1st, the mass rejection of emails.
Correct. We started trickling that in back in February. We've seen some more changes, but we've got next week, April 1st. That comes into
Monday.
effect. Yeah, Monday. Yeah.
It's not an April Fool's joke.
Yeah, it's not April Fool's at all.
So if you're not set up, it's scary.
Yeah.
So Frankenstein's monster of content. So emails that are pieced together, there isn't a real customer journey. It seems disconnected from your brand.
Right.
And it's just like whiplash for a consumer trying to follow through with a potentially good ad, and then they get this email that's like, this is not what I expect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important that marketers do a good job of consolidating all of their content and have one big dashboard so they can look at how their content is playing out in their different segments that they have based on the different demographic fields. A lot of companies are doing that now, but if you're not doing that, you really need to have one platform where all of your content is stored so that you can pull those analytics and look at it.
Oh yeah.
Because then you don't want to Frankenstein it. You don't want to piecemeal your content where you're sending out one message one week, and then the next week you've got a different message going out with different content that isn't on brand. It's all about consistency.
Right. And that's literally what we're all about here, is being consistent with all of these topics, making sure that everybody's in the know.
Yep.
Which I think brings us to the end of this episode.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us this week. Really appreciate you stopping by.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.